Hello, and welcome to the continuation of Homeland Security Today's 20th anniversary of 9/11 commemoration. We have been thrilled and excited at all of the amazing contributors that we've had this week, looking at the state of Homeland Security. And of course, all of you know that we couldn't get all of this done without some amazing industry partners who want to join the mission to never forget and are certainly playing an active role in securing the country against any further attack. So today we welcome Mike Engel, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at 1Kosmos, and 1Kosmos was the guardian sponsor of this effort this week. So thank you, Mike, for sponsoring this week. We certainly appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure to be here. It's such a great cause, so thank you.
Thank you. And you were in the security business way before 9/11. Mike is actually a proven information technology executive. He's a company builder. He's an entrepreneur. I feel that. He's an expert in information security, business development, product design development, and his career includes the head of information security at Lehman Brothers. He's the co-founder of Bastille Networks and chief strategy officer at 1Kosmos. So we really welcome you and want to ask you, the question we kind of have been asking everyone, which is, where were you on 9/11?
Yeah, no, it's hard to forget. I think we all remember where we were on that day. I was actually across the river. So there's the tallest building in New Jersey is called 101 Hudson, and it's directly across. And I was at work, obviously, and I heard the bang. So it was, I was close enough that I could hear something have happened. And a couple of us walked over to the window and looked across the river and saw, all kinds of debris and things coming out of the top of the building. So it was, seeing it all unfold in real time made quite an impression that'll never leave my mind.
Absolutely. It was a day that made us all pivot, I think. And so one of the things that has kind of made us pivot and certainly evolve since 9/11 is cybersecurity. How do you see that cybersecurity has evolved in the last 20 years?
Well, the way we interact with computers is obviously involved. I remember back then, the only devices that were working, I had family and friends in the towers. They all made it, thankfully, but our company had 1,000 people in World Trade One, and we did lose one employee. So, but I do remember the phone networks all went down. And the only thing that was working were these little research in motion. It was the predecessor to the BlackBerry. So it was these little Mobitex devices that were amazing. And I mentioned that because there was really very limited exposure of technology in our personal lives back then. I had a cell phone. I was one of the rare people to have the BlackBerry before BlackBerry. And there really wasn't much else. You might have had, a couple of email accounts. But today, everything's connected. You have hundreds of accounts online. Digital identity has become so important in our lives, and so is the security. So what happened after 9/11? We totally changed the way we think about physical security. We put armed guards around all of our buildings at Lehman Brothers and hired the NYPD to stand out front they called them paid detail. We took off our shoes before we got on planes and scanned bags. All those things changed. And the attack surface now, we don't worry about physical security like we used to. I mean, we worry about it, but now all of our focus has moved online because there's no barrier to entry for the bad guys. It's so much harder to walk up to a building in New York City and do something physically, where you can just sit in your, they say your underwear in Minsk and go make a couple $1 million by messing with somebody's infrastructure or them personally. So that's how the threat has evolved. It's moved from physical to logical, and that's why we're trying so hard to keep the bad guys out.
Absolutely. We've seen that convergence of physical and IT security too. One of the things that we're focusing on this month, in addition to, of course, the 9/11 commemoration, is that it's Insider Threat Month. So we're very fortunate to have Bill Evanina leading our effort on insider threat, but I know that 1Kosmos works on that as well. How do you see that evolving over the last 20, but certainly even more into the future?
Yeah, the last 20 days, right? It's no, we've insider threat has been our very real concern for so many levels and different types of organizations. One of the biggest ways that we're seeing identity fraud inside the organization is when credentials get actually given to other people. So, or if you hire somebody and you don't really know who they are on day two. So one of the terms I've seen be used in the industry is, for example, contractor jacking. Everything's remote now, right? I've hired a dozen people that I haven't even met yet. And I think they are who they say they are. I see them online, right? A small company like ours, I actually get to see them on video every day. But imagine you have 100,000 employees and you just hired 5,000. How many of them are not the people you hired, right? So using modern digital identity technologies, identity proofing, biometrics, you can actually fix that problem in ways that you couldn't a couple of years ago. We have all this modern compute power. We can use it for good, not just for bad. So we're seeing a lot more interest in that. And, for example, the way we hire and bring on people into the inside of the firm is being revolutionized, just like it is in other areas of our lives. So that's going to be quite a big trend. And now that's a real key principle of zero trust, which I know is a hot topic for you and your constituents, right? So never trust, always verify.
And why is that authentication and zero trust so important? You saw the president's executive order, and we're all moving to zero trust. Talk to us a little bit more about why that is so important.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you knew every time that Kate was the person logging into the resources, if you knew exactly who that was, you would sleep a lot better at night. You wouldn't have to worry about putting on all these Band-Aids to try to figure out if it might be somebody else. And the real root cause of that is lack of a good credential. So what do we use instead of that? We've been using passwords, right? Which we know is the root cause for so many recent ransomwares and other major breaches. So we have to get rid of the password. Password is not a foundation of zero trust, right? Because I can give it to you, I can give it to anybody, somebody can steal it. So we now are implementing something we refer to as identity-based authentication. Anytime you need to access a critical resource, prove your identity. Just like you would hand somebody a driver's license and they would compare it and it's a trusted credential, right? We can do that now in the digital world. So I believe the government has a whole framework around zero trust. And the first pillar of that is properly identifying people. And while 2FA and sending a text message to somebody to kind of hope that they're the right person with the phone in their hand is better than just a password, it still doesn't prove identity. So we're looking to change the landscape there, and the industry is doing great work on that front.
Excellent. We are looking at ransomware also. HSToday, I'm sure you saw our big piece on the Colonial Pipeline, and it was kind of an event that everyone said was going to happen, and then when it happened, everyone was like, what happened? And everyone in security was like, what we've been telling you for the last decade or however long it's been. How do you see ransomware evolving given the outcome of what happened with Colonial Pipeline, and what do you see the big next attack to be?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it happened this way, but now everybody's paying attention to ransomware once you mess with their oil or sometimes their hospitals, right? But that had been going on for a year or two, and police departments and things. So mess with the oil and now you have everybody's attention. So while we have it, there's a ton of user education around proper credential usage. But where I see the landscape changing, I think, is where everything is now ransomware as a service. I believe the threat actors that took down Colonial actually hired a ransomware as a service group, right, to perform that attack. And we'll probably see that move into the consumer sector, right? So if somebody were to point a ransomware gun at me or my family and I don't know, lock out my phone, my computer, steal all my pictures, my tax returns, they could probably make a lot of money that way by just getting it out to the masses. And you look at this 0-day vulnerability that came out with Apple this week. One text message apparently could compromise a phone. So imagine that being used as a vector for ransomware to millions of iPhone users. Or more likely, they're going to target the top 1,000 or 10,000 people in a country or a certain vertical and just, make their lives hell. Much harder for them to react than a big multi-billion-dollar corporation. So they'll probably just pay. So that'll make it real for not only the companies and their customers, but individuals as well.
So you're talking about much more distributed attack that
Right.
impacts everyone. Well, that could actually spur a lot of positive behavior on consumers' parts.
That's
So
right.
many of us have been talking about digital hygiene for a decade as well, and everyone kind of ignores you. And if that started to happen, that would certainly bring the pain home. So that's an interesting hypothesis. So we can't leave this little interview without asking you how you are evolving 1Kosmos to meet these changing threats and how you add to this market.
Yeah. So our evolution is really just a continuation of what we've been doing since we started the company, and that is just creating a reusable, trusted identity and getting rid of usernames and passwords. Right. So there's a lot of work to do there. We will evolve the implementation of that. It's getting easier and easier to change the way people think about identity, right? So if you think about just a couple of years ago, you would never let a phone scan your face, right? When Face ID came out, people were like, lasers shooting on my face. And same thing with your thumbprint on a phone. But Apple, Google, and other tech companies have made it understood. They're starting to trust it. When we can apply that level of biometric authentication, it's going to change the game, because the bad guys can't quite as easily impersonate my face looking into this camera to prove who I am remotely. So we're educating the market as we're selling into it. We're evolving our techniques and really just trying to really bring awareness about the possibilities of what can be done out there. And of course, we will continue to add intelligence and make it as seamless and transparent to the end users. That's the real game. Security's always been a barrier. A lock on a door, a 2FA code, a secure ID token, and all these layers try to keep bad guys out, but they're keeping good guys out too. So our real focus is on the user experience around authentication as much as better security. Put those two together and you've got a winning path to success.
That's terrific. Well, I think we're all waiting for that as some of the companies implement two-factor authentication that is actually very, very annoying. So any way you can make that user experience better, we appreciate it. You're certainly a symbol of how the private sector market achieves and grows toward goals for the country. So thank you for your work at 1Kosmos. Thank you for your sponsorship of the Homeland Security Today 20th anniversary of 9/11 commemoration. And we thank you for what you do. Thanks for joining us.
It was my pleasure. Have a great day.
Thank you.